remember all of us in town running on the field. The Nazi planes came down at the people and shooting with their guns. And that's the first time I really witnessed death and pain and injury, is when they were coming down. They didn't care who they were shooting at that point. They were just shooting at people.
What was it like for you to witness all of that and try and understand what was happening?
That's a nightmare, a real nightmare, because right after the shooting, I remember we went home and the Nazi tanks came roaring through town. We didn't have any concrete on the street. They were just gravel and dust, and they caused all kinds of dust. The little homes were shaking from those tanks. And right behind the tanks, they had these motorcycles. They had motorcycles. These motorcycles, there was a motorcycle and then somebody sitting at the side. It's got a little side, so a person could sit on the side. I think they had machine guns or something. And they were following. Pretty soon, soldiers were following. And then, you know, we were looking out the windows. We were scared. We didn't know what was going on. That's when things really got bad. Not that this wasn't bad, but it really got bad, because then you could see they were mean. They started beating people. First big memory of being beaten is I saw a soldier hitting an old Jewish man in the head with the butt of his rifle, and hit him in the forehead, and it was bleeding, and the man was begging for him to stop. That was a memory as a child. It was a first memory. And of course it got worse. The soldiers were really bad. They would come at night. They would shoot in the air. They would beat up people. That was early in the day. There's just a lot of stories about that. And when they came in, you don't know what they would do in the house. I'll give you an example. One soldier came into the house. He asked for hot tea. So my mother and father went and got him some hot tea. The soldier took it. He was really close to my father, and then threw it into my father's face. I was there and I saw it, and my father was rubbing his eyes. And that's just a little minor thing that happened. I'll give you another one. You mentioned my brother David. 4 soldiers came. You know, my father had a black beard, always wore long dark clothing and big hat and all that. So he was very visible as a Jewish leader. And they would pick on him a lot. So these 4 soldiers took my father into the woods. My brother David was following in the distance. There was nothing he could do but hide behind trees. But what he saw was they broke branches from the tree, various trees, I guess, and they started beating they didn't shoot him, they just started beating him, until he passed out. Now, I remember still my brother, you know, not really carrying me. My father had his arm around his neck and he was sort of bringing it home. And then I remember my father being put on the bed. They took off the shirt and all the cuts and the bruises and blood all over his back. And this is some of the things they did before they even got us into a ghetto. I think the Nazis pulled the worst of the sadistics, people whose job it was to get rid of the Jews. They knew there were X million of Jews and we got to get rid of them. And the way to do it is to beat them, to starve them, to shoot them, to gas them, whatever was necessary. Getting back to my father, this is what the Nazis did. They would come to our town every morning, get Jews out, line them up. I remember they were marching off. Marching off, we don't know where they were going, into the woods or someplace to do work, but to being humiliated. And at the end of the day, not all of them came back. They shot some. And of course, then they started the ghetto. It's an area you cannot leave. You leave, guess what? You get shot. And then you did get shot. And you didn't get food. Well, how are you supposed to eat? So people were dying on the street from starvation. And I was always so hungry. And I could see little kids on the street. I remember their stomachs were bloated. I don't know, I guess you get that from lack of food. And then there was disease. And they did something else that was bad. Temblin, you know, you mentioned the river. It had a lot of railroads going through. And it was on the way to Treblinka and Sobibor. So they used our town as a holding place for a lot of the Jews. So I remember in our home, suddenly we had 20 people living with us. And they too didn't have food. And the streets were getting hunger, disease, and it was bad. And then they would come and take you away to go into cattle cars to Treblinka, Sobibor, Auschwitz, and all those places. I remember trucks just coming into town, and from the back of the truck, soldiers would come out. They had guns with bayonets on them. And they were yelling, they were running to the houses, Schnell, come raus. They were pulling all the Jews out the way they were and putting them into the center of town where it was open, the marketplace. And there they were. And you know, if they didn't move fast enough, guess what?
They were shot.
They were shot, or stabbed, or beaten. These people, they knew where the people were going. They were going to the cattle car, to the gas chamber, so they didn't care how many people died. I think the first time they came, and I heard the shooting going on all the time, I think they shot 800 people. I don't know exactly, but it was close to that. And so they lined all the Jews up in the marketplace, and people were crying and yelling, and the Germans were screaming. And I was in that line, close to my father. He held onto my hand. I was his little guy. And it was kind of squeezed together. I was in the middle, like I was being protected by people. And all I could see is just look up. I couldn't see left and right. And all I could see is sky, and I was kind of hoping I would be all right. And I was like, saying to myself, it was almost as I was speaking to a guardian angel, saying, I'll be all right, I'll be all right. I'm a little kid, what do I know?